Our Tales from Tech Support, Episode 12. Felt like an outcast for the first time ever in IT. I started working for this company about 18 months ago, and I always found it odd that instantly people started emailing me directly saying they would submit a ticket, but they want my help and don't want anyone else in my department to help. Come to find out, my department had absolutely horrible social skills and were just flat out rude and condescending to people when they were helping them. There have been times I have heard one of our sysadmins on occasion call people a fucking idiot in a conference call, just to name one instance.
Somehow they have never gotten in trouble for this.
I brushed it off and went on my way.
So back when I was really green with the company and still
learning where everything was located and whatnot, anytime I would ask for help I would get a smug response, "Figure it out on your own," or "I had to do it myself so you can do it yourself." I honestly couldn't believe myself. Come to find out, not one person in my IT department ever wanted to end up in IT. Ironically, they all hate what they do. I get made fun of constantly for having a mechanical keyboard and some gaming and horror movie related Funko Pop figurines on my desk because it's childish. I have been on the hunt for a new job for a few months for something that I could call a long-term home and potentially move up in positions, so I have really been struggling with tolerating my employees, and all I can say is it's the little things people say that are just enough to make me continue a little longer here while looking for another job. One of my ticket surveys came back today that just made me feel like I stand a little taller today. Op was extremely helpful with helping me with my situation. He solved my problem before the day was over. He went above and beyond in helping me with my problem, and I appreciate his efforts and patience with me. This was just enough to remind me that you can't let other people constantly drag you down, because how you treat others can oftentimes have an equal effect on their day. Edit. Thanks for the support, guys. It really does mean a lot to see people show some support to get out of this place. I am working on it. I've gone back to school to get a degree and some certs, cause I don't actually have any certs on my resume. Wanna finish my degree ASAP, and then I plan to just keep looking in the meantime for a new job. Edit 2. I came here honestly just wanting to vent and found this subreddit where I thought it would be appropriate, but wow, you guys have really blown me away with your support. I have been wearing a permanent smile on my face the whole day from your responses. They really do mean a lot. Thanks so much for all of your kind words. They couldn't have come at a time when I needed them more, so thank you. Edit 3. Wow. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. I don't know what to say except thank you. That means a lot.
You did what now?
FTP and all that. I work at a small MSP. With small, I mean, there are 4 of us and 2.5 of us are techs. We do a lot of things. If it plugs in and have a network, we support it for our customers. They are usually small, 2 to maybe 150 people, anything from offices to construction.
Being a small company,
I do everything. Even if my main job is to handle servers and networks, I still take T1 calls. I had just settled down for a Friday after lunch in the middle of vacation time of the year. Things were dead quiet all week, so I was working on trying to get my head around Python. I'm going to need to know it sooner or later, so by omniscia, I was going to beat my head against it until I learned it.
Even if it was by imprint on my skull.
No such luck though, as my phone rang. I picked up the headset to accept the call. Dryden, $SMALLMSP, this is Dryden. We're a small company, working for small companies.
Most of which is made up of what would go as blue-collar workers.
We actively try not to sound like the usual help desk they have to talk to when calling ISP or TV provider or something. $Client, hello, this is $Client from $MEDIUMSIZEDCLIENT. I'm having trouble printing.
Didn't recognize the name.
Not too unusual. We support something like 3,000 users in total, even if most I interact with the managers and frequent flyers. Dryden, sure, I should be able to do something about that. Can you open up $REMOTESOFTWARE so I can take a look? Meanwhile, I'm already logging into their server. Or trying to at least.
VPN wouldn't connect.
I really wish I could get people to spring for monitoring, I really do.
But people are cheap.
$Client, it's not working. Dryden, yes, I can see that. I can't seem to be able to connect to your network. Can you get online? $Client, I was having trouble with the Google. It didn't work, so I reset the router. They have a business grade router.
VPN tunnels,
routing rules, firewall rules, a lot of them. Sure, we had a backup config, but that was from the install date. A metric ton of stuff had changed since then, and they didn't want a service deal, rather to pay for each hour worked.
So no further backups taken.
I stared at my screen for several seconds as my brain rebooted before I spent another couple pondering if it was too late to change career. Maybe something involving puppies. Dryden, you did what? $Client, yeah, that always work at home. There was a small mumble of talking in the background before he spoke up again. $Client, now internet isn't working for $other client across the hall either. Is the server down? Dryden, it seems like you are having a bit of trouble with your network. It's not something I can fix remotely. I would need to head out to you for that. When would be a good time? $Client, as soon as possible. We can't work like this. You really should make sure your gear works. I think we pay for better service than this. I reached for my cup of tea. Took a long sip, contemplated getting a new one. Dryden, sure thing. I'll pack up and head out to you as soon as possible. We hung up, I logged the call and then went and got another cup of tea first. They were 2 towns over, an hour and a half drive from the office. Then I'd need to do a complete router rebuild, followed by driving back home to get home late. Just what I wanted on a Friday. But then again, it got me 3 hours of audiobook time, so it wasn't a total loss. When the sysadmin fails. Right now there is a tropical depression bearing down on my city and the area is flooding a lot. As such, my work was closed because roads were impassable. So I decided to try to remote into work to get some things done and found that I didn't have the VPN client installed on my home computer.
So then this happened.
Players, $me, $OSA, other SYS admin, one with VPN access, and AMP, #X200B. $me, I've spent the last 15 minutes scouring my email, network info notes and history trying to remember the URL to download the Cisco VPN client from ASA and I have been unsuccessful. My blood pressure is rising because I can't remember a simple URL. An AMP, #X200B. I decide to start sending texts to my coworker so he can get into ASA and send me a OTP and enrollment certificate for my VPN. I remember there's a link in the email so I can stop wasting time. $OSA sends it over to me within a few minutes. Yay, his stuff is working. An AMP, #X200B. $me, I downloaded the certificate but the URL, school-asa.school.com/closing square bracket opening parenthesis https://school-asa.school.com/closing parenthesis doesn't get me the client. I tried adding admin to the end but that was wrong. None of my credentials for Cisco or my school were working and I kept getting login errors when trying to get past the splash page. $OSA, have you tried the main admin account? $me, *headdesk*, no. An AMP, #X200B. So I tried that and yup. Those worked. So I finally download the client and install the certificate. Then I load the client and the certificate doesn't appear to have loaded. I restart the client, still no certificate loading for me to connect. I reboot computer, twice, still nothing. I start Googling the fail points and other things trying to learn why this isn't working. It's supposed to be simple. I'm not a Luddite, I should be able to do this. $OSA, did you type school-asa.school.com https://school-asa.school.com into the client manually? $me, *headdesking again, no. Lo and behold, it worked when I typed it in manually and I connected to the VPN. It shouldn't have been so hard. But I haven't had to set it up in over 2 years and I just plain forgot all the simple steps. I went straight for the complicated problems. Not my finest hour. Reading is hard. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. Work as kind of a jack of all trades in IT systems department for a newspaper. Cast.
Systems, me.
Retail 1 sales assistant. Retail 2 wheezing sales assistant. Retail 3 another sales assistant. Printer, old HP 5550. Retail 1 sent an email to me. Retail 1, systems, can you please come and look at the color printer?
Systems,
what is wrong with it? Need information. Working on a laptop at the time to make sure it is working for department heads. Retail 1, blah blah printing whatchamacallit, not candy, blah blah error message. Doesn't give any numbers, just error, I'm not sure about these things.
Phone rings. Retail 2.
Systems, wheeze, our printer is not printing. Wheeze has error message wheeze and the color is off center wheeze.
Systems,
what error are you getting on the printer? Retail 2, I can smell the burning rubber on the other end of the building by asking this question. Wheeze printer is not printing wheeze. Never knew phone calls were a workout for some. Trot my happy little ass down to the retail area to the printer. Overheard Retail 3 talking with Retail 1 and Retail 2. Retail 3, I don't know anything about this equipment, something on the lines, not the first time with dealing with her on simply repairs. Walk up to the printer, saw the message it was spewing out. Printer, magenta toner is low, reorder toner. Printer is around 13 years old, been abused by this department for years with heavy printing. I've Frankensteined several times to keep it up and running. Also, we use refurbished toner cartridges for the old cow. Rolled eyes, gave the printer a power enema the printer to clear any blockage in the pipe if any. Trot back to desk and replied to email, that was no error message. Just a low toner message.
You can still print to it.
You can also print to the Ricoh printer, Big Bertha, over yonder. Not sure why I mentioned this, as informing people of other printers to use and walk to is the equivalent of the Baton Death March to some people. Retail 1, okay, do we have toner for printer? Got back up and changed the magenta cartridge with a new one, figured that they will still not understand the concept of the message. Forget trying to save money, ha ha ha. Replied back that toner was changed. Wondering if these people call a mechanic if the low fuel light comes on in their car. TLDR, 3 capable adults can't read a low toner message on a printer. Yet another funny ticket competition ain't so funny anecdote. I'm pretty sure everyone's seen something like this at least once, because I got something like this all the way back to my apprenticeship. Anyway, at my current contract for an international app company, I'm flicking through emails when I get pinged by a senior global manager, gently reprimanding a senior site manager. Turns out, the one getting reprimanded began a competition for strange tickets. The two first ones were from Eastern Europe and the Middle East. The first went something like, please send wired mouth. The second said something like, battery of laptop was swallowed. Thanks, Apple products. The main issue was that this was sent to every IT personnel worldwide, including random contractors like me, a few VPs, and the IT staff from those locations, and the tickets weren't anonymized. Links, employee info, centers were kept. This went both ways, since another site manager and a tier 2 in Asia joined in, and I could see a lot. On top of that, there's the obvious issue of poking fun at English mangling when a lot of the company is ESL. No top of the chain head rolling, since the global manager, plus another site manager who pointed out it's best to think about how might the users take the mocking, which is important for a global corporation that has a lot of people going from office to office, apparently knew the site manager, and no irritated messages from execs. We all did get an apology and promised to do better from the site manager. Nylon and cotton can crash computers. I saw the story about static electricity and it reminded me of this story. An amp, X200B. In the late 80s I had a client who had about 20 generic standalone 286 computers. These were used for running spreadsheets and word processing. 5 of them were used by the partner's PA and would regularly crash, while those used by the rest of the staff were as good as gold. An amp, X200B. They were all identically set up, and if I swapped a unit from a PA with one used by a staff member, there was no problem with the swapped computer when it was by the staff member. However, the swapped computer used by the PA would suddenly start crashing. An AMP #X200B.
Most of the building had wooden floors,
But the two senior partners' area, their PA and the meeting rooms had expensive carpet. However, the senior partners' computers didn't crash and the other PA computers did crash, but not as often as the senior partners' PA computers did. An AMP #X200B. I was fairly certain that the cause was down to static electricity, so the client had the carpet treated to reduce static buildup and anti-static mats were placed under the chairs and desks.
This vastly reduced the incidence of the crashes but did not eliminate them. So we started a log of who was using the computers and getting accurate times of when they crashed.
An AMP #X200B.
This narrowed it down to 2 people.
One was the office junior, a 16-year-old sweetie, and the other was the managing partner's PA.
She had a presence and ruled the practice with an iron fist. She terrified everyone including her boss.
An AMP #X200B. We found out that the office junior was wearing a lot of cotton including her lingerie. No minds out of the gutter, we actually asked her after seeing her get zapped when she went to open a filing cabinet. However, no one had the nerve to ask the managing partner's PA what she wore. An AMP #X200B. The managing partner solved the problem by giving all the female staff members silk lingerie as a bonus. The men got a boozy weekend away. When the managing partner's PA asked why lingerie, the office junior told her that it was her cotton clothing that was causing the computers to crash and that nylon fabric was apparently just as bad, and by giving all the female staff the same she wasn't seen to be taken advantage of. And yes, the crashes stopped. Scrolling ghost?
Seems legit.
Just had an interesting one. Had a user complained there was a ghost in the PC making it scroll without pressing anything. Righto then, I followed him over and sure enough when Explorer was scrolling, browser was scrolling, literally everything was scrolling without touching the mouse or keyboard. Easy fix, I thought, the mouse is buggy. Replaced it, still scrolling. Uninstalled drivers, still scrolling. Disabled the trackpad, still scrolling. Uninstalled trackpad drivers, still scrolling. Using nothing but CMD now, still scrolling. What the serious? Down arrow is stuck. Replaced keyboard, still scrolling. After a few restarts and head scratching, begin thinking I'll have to rebuild, replace the laptop because he needs to keep working. Then I notice his laptop bag next to the desk. I open it up and sure enough there is a Bluetooth mouse in there powered on. Switched it off and the ghost was evicted.
Been in IT for over 10
years, built systems from the ground up numerous times and still get a curveball like this every now and then. Always use protection. This is not my story, but I'm going to tell it in first person. In a data center there are these devices called power distribution units, PDUs. Imagine a large metal cabinet the size of a wardrobe that's responsible for routing electricity. One day, I had one open because I had to run repairs on it and couldn't shut it down as it was still routing power to a majority of the row. Naturally, I had on giant rubber gloves that go up to my elbows because I like not being electrocuted. Meet Dave, the security bro. Dave thinks he is funny, which is surprising because he doesn't generally think at all. He was making his rounds and came across me working on this monster and I warn him that it's live. He thinks it would be funny to play a game of how close can we get? I roll my eyes and get back to work when I hear the loudest crack I have heard in my life. Dave's on the floor, unconscious, and missing a finger. Management was not thrilled that I rolled my eyes again before starting CPR. Interview has an interesting twist. I'm currently an intern at a big tech company and as of late it's been made clear only 3 interns are getting hired on full-time out of a group of 15. I'm skeptical of my chances of being hired on full-time, so I started putting out feelers and applications to places I had existing connections. It's all been great and due to my unique skill set I've gotten a few on-phone interviews and 1 or 2 in-person interviews. One of them is for a startup a professor of mine told me about. He said it was founded by one his best students and they were doing something cool. I get a recommendation from him and get in direct contact with the founder, who then gives me all these reasons why they are cool and changing the world. It sounded really great, and he was willing to wait until my summer internship was over to get serious about recruiting me. He did, however, ask me to come in so we could talk about my skills and what I can do with the team. I'm all in and tell him I can see him anytime. I get there today and he seems a bit confused but brushes it off and tells me he likes my work and he's excited about the possibility of us working together. We sit in their big open office setting and he starts quizzing me on what I know and what I can do.
This is when things get strange.
He asks me how long I've been working on Ruby, which is a language I don't know, and how long I've worked with Java. I tell him I do use Ruby, but I've used Java for a few years. He looks at my GitHub and is impressed to a degree but says he hasn't seen anything I've done recently. I'm very confused at this point, but I keep answering questions and we eventually get to talking about what he's doing and what the office is like. He is dropping strange little bits of information about what I would be doing, and he's getting more and more detailed about what he would like to have me work on when I can.
This is when I
finally figured it out. He mentions a major tech company in the industry we work in and asks me what I did when I worked there. I just tell him I've never worked there, to which he replies by opening up his iPad and pulls up my LinkedIn. It's my name, but it has a whole list of skills and companies worked at that I've never seen. He has some other guys LinkedIn up who didn't have a profile picture and thinks this guy is me.
This guy was under the impression I was some seasoned programmer who worked at major companies and wasn't at all fazed when he heard I was interning at a place over the summer.
I just had an interview where they interviewed me thinking I was someone else. I got out of there a while after when he asked me questions that were relevant to me, and we both left soon after. TLDR, got interviewed and the whole time they thought I was someone else. Teacher couldn't handle my answer as an intern.
Some background to the story.
I was an IT intern for my school district, and the main customers, you might call them, were our teachers at school and throughout the 40+ schools in the district. And enter mean-spirited teacher. An AMP #X200B. Cast. An AMP #X200B. K. Karen, teacher in question, but it's not her real name. An AMP #X200B. Me, obviously a ghost. An AMP #X200B. TP, tech partner. An AMP #X200B. During the summer, some of the teachers are still working and have to do some things to make the next year start without a hitch. Well, at one of the elementary schools we service, there is a teacher with a reputation of making someone's day terrible by just a word. An AMP #X200B. The ticket we got was to replace her smart board that had failed the last week of school, and so TP and I both go to the school and replace this 75-pound board, and we're having a little difficulty, and Kay is in the room with us, and so we ask for help.
She rudely declines.
Great, so we have to manhandle this board by ourselves and mount it on these pegs that are actually quite large and help the process, and we got the board hung and everything went swimmingly. Or so I thought. An AMP #X200B. 2 weeks later, Kay puts in a ticket that she couldn't get her laptop screen on the projector. As this was a simple job, I went without my TP and thought it would be a simple plug this in and mess with some settings. Geez, was I wrong? She starts complaining that the board was tacky and didn't match the wall. It's literally a whiteboard with a gray outline and it's mounted on a white wall. Tacky. An AMP #X200B.
So I go over her
settings, completely ignoring the fact she pointed something out that I couldn't change, and got the screen working. I left shortly after diagnosing the problem and made it back to my HQ successful until my boss came down to me. It's a multi-level structure and he seems a little agitated that she put a bad comment on the ticket because I ignored her. An AMP #X200B. Let's just say it has been 2 years since I worked there, and boy am I glad I quit, because I had so many issues with the way some of the other techs talked to me and that I couldn't make any money during the school year, so I picked up another job. An AMP #X200B. I have tons of other stories if this piqued your interest.